Hey there, this is Andrew bringing you a Dark Tidings update and a little intro for you. So, Dark Tidings is, if you've been following the news, it's delayed in the US until May 14th, and I think in some other parts of the world too, but most places have it now, and it works in the Master Vault. So, that means for those of us who are in the US, I'm really excited to play it. We're just having to wait a little longer. I personally ordered some decks, not a ton, but a few decks from Canada, and we'll be opening those before May 14th, but then I'm getting a lot more from my local game store on the 14th. So if you're really anxious to get your hands on some Dark Tidings, then ordering from Canada is one way to do it. But you can also go on to the Crucible Online and try it out there. And of course, because it's on the Master Vault, you can go to keyforgegame.com or use the Master Vault app to look through decks. They're also on decks of Keyforge. So no SAS ratings yet, but that's all right. We like playing without that help sometimes for a little while. Yeah, so if you're really anxious, though, you can get your hands on some early, but other than that, head over to your LGS to your local game store on May 14th, and hopefully they'll have some for you. In the meantime, I'm not going to go through full spoilers in this video by any means. Well, for certain cards I will, but I'm not going to go over every card in the game or every new thing. But I want to give a quick overview of some new mechanics you might see and just the general flavor of the houses, especially the new house, Unfathomable. So that if you don't play, you don't look through all the cards, but you show up on May 14th and maybe in your area things are in good enough shape that you're actually allowed to sit down and play with people, you'll have some idea of what to expect and not be totally blindsided. If you want to be totally blindsided, then more power to you. I totally understand the thrill of that form of discovery. So go for it. But if you want to have some idea of what's going on, then hopefully this will give you a good intro. I also want to give a quick shout out to my friends over at Cole of the Week, Brobner89 and Shaka, who have been doing really in-depth discussions about particular cards. They're not covering every card by any means, but they are doing really deep dives on a few interesting cards. So that I've listened to every episode and enjoyed them, so I highly recommend them. Once we get some experience playing, I plan to do full walkthroughs for every house in the set like I've done before, and I'll probably end up getting Brobner89 and Shaka on as guests if they're willing, because they've been really fun to do that with in the past. So we'll see how that works out, but I'm hoping we can do that. So, but anyway, if you want some more, a little more in-depth than what I'm going to do here, or just more content and listen to some smart people talk about Keyforge, then I highly recommend checking out Cole of the Week. All right, so let's start. First, I want to talk about some of the overall new stuff that you might see. If you have really not been reading Keyforge news, then you might not know about this, but otherwise you probably do, and that's Evil Twins. So some decks will have an Evil Twin, which is a deck that has the same exact list, but some of the cards, some of the creatures specifically, are swapped out for an Evil Twin version of the card that has the same name, but some change in the effect. And it's always related to the original card, to the non-evil version, but it'll have some interesting effect related to, well, usually some kind of inverse of what is going on the other card, on the original. So you'll see a lot more of the non-evil versions, but you will see occasionally an Evil Twin deck where every creature that can be an Evil Twin is swapped out for the Evil Twin version. Okay. Whew. So, and they said they kind of tried to over-index on doing that for commons, and they only did it for creatures that are new in this set. They didn't make evil versions of any creatures that are coming back from older sets. So yeah, so if you see an Evil Twin deck, it'll probably have a lot of Evil Twin cards because it's the commons that are largely getting swapped out. There are some rare evil versions. All right, other than that, you'll see that the new lists, I actually wish I had a picture of this, but I didn't get one. The new lists are sideways. They're turned 90 degrees from what you're used to, and so that'll just take a little bit of getting used to. They also have icons added to show what type each card is in a quick view on the list. So I think it's a nice change overall. It'll just take some getting used to. There are a number of cards in the new set that offer you some kind of choice. So they will say, here's a list of 2 or 3 choices, do one of these things. So that's a really interesting pattern. And I think there's at least one of those in every house, maybe a couple in every house, but it's definitely a new thing they're doing. There's some enhance that's back, not nearly as much as was in Mass Mutation, but there is definitely some. So that might be something that we just continue to see in sets, but just not as prevalent as it was in Mass Mutation. There are these treasure artifacts that seem to I wrote that, but what's the I'm gonna cut this part. Treasure artifacts. There are indeed treasure artifacts that have sort of a similar recurrent theme of putting 4 amber on them, and then whoever meets the goal of the card gets that amber. There are only 3 of them, so 3 houses each get one of those. Leaders are back. Not everybody gets leaders, but leaders are back. And the ships, there's a set of artifacts that are ships that have effects related to using creatures on your board in order to get some effect. So it seems to sort of say, okay, you're not going to use that creature this turn for its normal use, but you're going to get this this value out of it. So that seems like an interesting space to go in. I think everybody has a ship, but don't quote me on that. In fact, I know that some houses have multiple ships. All right. So, okay, let's go into some specific houses. So let's talk about Logos. And I just have one example Logos card here, but it's a really insane one. Overall, you're going to still see a lot. You're going to see a lot of top of deck focus in this set, where it's playing cards off the top of your deck. There's always been some of that in Logos, but different sets have had different levels of it. This one seems to have a lot of it. There are cards that reward you for playing a lot of cards in one way or another. Less that seem to be about enabling you to do that, to just play card after card after card. I think library card is back, but there's things that will reward you for playing a lot of cards. So if you can get, like, let's say a library card, or you get an effect where you can play a lot of cards in the same turn, there are cards that will make you really glad you did. This, so this example card that I have up, Groundbreaking Discovery, is pretty crazy. It's part of a 4-card combo that all come together that are special rarity, but when you play it, if you control Dr. Varocta, Rooftop Laboratory, and Reckless Experimentation, destroy each card in play, unforge an opponent's key, and purge Groundbreaking Discovery. So it purges itself, so it's a one-off, but if you pull off the combo, you unforge an opponent's key, period. That's crazy. It's not unforge and give them amber back, or it's just you unforge. That's insane. So that's pretty cool. That's not the first unforge we've seen, but it's the first unforge in the game that is so like and they're going to have to now make 4 keys to win this game. So very interesting. It would also be interesting to see if you can get 2 of this setup. I haven't checked that yet, but that would be an interesting thing to see. Okay. I want to make a list later of notable returning cards. I saw, I think it was it the folks at Amazing Spider Tank who did it? Somebody put up a list of the top 5 returning cards per house. I haven't read that yet because I had an idea to do something like that, and I didn't want to read theirs and have my mind polluted. But at this point, I probably won't get to it. So I should just mention some here and then say that if you let me just find it. Well, no, if you look for best returning cards. Yeah, it is Amazing Spider Tank. Top 5 reprints per house. So yeah, I'm just going to say that's what you should do. You should look up Amazing Spider Tank top 5 reprints. Very good. I'm not going to make that now. But I'm sure they did a great job, and I'll read it probably after I finish making this. So anyway, I'll just say for logos, I think Eureka, E-Die, and Phase Shift are all pretty awesome, and I'm glad to see those back. Really excited about E-Die, but I do love Phase Shift and Eureka as well. All right, Sanctum. I only put in one example here too, just for the sake of time, but it seems like every house has some things that are going to manipulate the tide, some cards that will, and a lot that say like, play this if the tide is high, you get this benefit, otherwise raise the tide, which that seems like a pretty cool way to balance that type of effect. Most cards that care about the tide are going to do better when the tide is high, but there's at least one card in Sanctum that has a benefit to there being a low tide, so that'll be interesting to see how that works out in a world where maybe you're mostly typically wanting the tide to be high. This set has a lot of ways to drop your opponent to 5 in Sanctum. Like, if you take ones from other sets, like most of them are back here. You have Doorstep, you have Bring Low, you have Gatekeeper. So really just a lot of ways to drop your opponent down to 5. That is seems notable. Like I said, past sets had ways to do it, but not so many. There's a skip forge effect that just keeps happening if the condition is met. It can happen every turn potentially that you cause your opponent to skip a key. So that seems interesting. And then yeah, on the notable returns here for Sanctum, they're still beefy, of course, big beefy creatures. They still like to capture, so none of that's new. It's going to be, what you expect out of Sanctum. They like to fight some. Epic Quest is back. That seems really cool. Hadroth's Wall is back, and that's I think a really underrated card, underappreciated. It's a great card. Hadroth's Wall is, and I think Orb of Wonder is back too. So that'll be pretty interesting. Also, just a great card, and with so many drop your opponent to 5 options, it seems like it'll just always have at least a good target in Sanctum, if not in your other houses. Okay, on to Saurian. Saurian, this is kind of crazy, this Hestatus Raptor, which seems to be something like Plague Rats. I have not checked what the count spread is on these, but they assume that you're going to have more of them. So that seems kind of cool, and I like the theme. There are ways in Saurian in the set to unstun creatures, so that could be pretty cool. There is, it seems like a bit of reap deny, denying your opponent the ability to reap. There is upgrade hate cards that will get rid of or punish upgrades. There is a lot of hatred for tiny creatures, makes sense in the Saurians. There is a tide-based Brachus. That seems really cool. It's a common, so Brachus will be much more. It's not Brachus, obviously, but this will show up a lot more than Brachus would, but it only works if the tide is high. So theoretically, your opponent can turn it off by raising the tide on their end, and that seems like a really cool back and forth that could happen there. There is some Purge in Saurian, and yeah, notable returns. I was excited to see Crassosaurus come back. That's a really interesting card. Imperial Forge is back, also just a fantastic card, so good in Saurian, and City-State Interest is back. All these are interesting, fun cards that seem great with Medicus Lacus, so that'll be cool. All right, on to Shadows. Shadows has some taunt in this set, which is interesting. There seem to be a lot of exalt games in Shadows where you're going to gain amber by exalting an opponent's creature. There's an effect that sets up global reap capture, so that anytime a creature reaps, the opponent's creatures capture the amber. That's a very interesting effect. There's some uncapture effects to get amber back. They do have at least 2 ships in Shadows. We got Sea Urchin, which makes a lot of sense thematically. Yeah, and then notable returns here. Mac the Knife is back. That is good to see. I love Mac. Smiling Ruth is back. I got a friend with Smiling Ruth earlier today because he forgot that it matters ever and let me keep it on the board when I forged. Brend is back, and Mug is back. So interesting cards there. Star Alliance seems to be continuing their friendly to everybody ways. This card's interesting. Shield You Later. You can make it an upgrade, play it as an upgrade, but then it's this Evil Twin version at least causes the creatures attached to lose all armor and get -2 power. So it's kind of a total, well, not total, but it is a bit of an answer to Light of the Archons, right? You strip Light of the Archons of a lot of this benefit if you attach this to the creature that has Light of the Archons on it. There's a pair of creatures you can get that want to be bookends on your battle line, and if they are, then you get some pretty cool effects. There is a timed forge prevention, so it works kind of like Heart, but it's on a timer. That seems interesting. Mattermaker is back. Really glad to see that. There's a lot of cards in here that are about forcing house variety. There's one that makes players unable to choose the same house twice in a row. There are cards that punish you for having not enough variety, or that kill all but one creature in each house. Cool stuff like that. Still a lot of play, fight, reap effects. Still a lot of use your other house's stuff. That's fun. There are 3 different upgrades in this set in Star Alliance that ward a creature. So that seems pretty crazy to me. Z-Force Agent is back with Light of the Archons, which also just seems insane. You can get a Z-Force Agent with Light of the Archons, and there's no legacy involved. That seems cool. And there is an action-based transporter platform. So it's an action card that acts like transporter platform. That seems pretty cool. All around good stuff. I love Star Alliance. I think it'll be exciting to get them in this set. All right, and then what we've been waiting for, of course, the new house, Unfathomable. Oh, one thing I just forgot to mention before, in the card list now, you're going to see the rares on top. And so, and I'm actually excited because that means when I do deck openings, I'll be hitting the rares first and then going to the uncommons and commons. And that's a different way to do it. I'm excited to do it. I won't have to change the order of, which side of the deck I start from to get that. I would have to change in order to not get that. So there you go. But yeah, flash freeze for the remainder of the turn after you play another card, exhaust a creature. You're going to see a ton of exhaust in Unfathomable. They are a disruption and control house, and a big part of how they're going to do that is exhaust creatures. In general, there's, I think, a theme about denying the opponent access to their resources. So you're going to see a lot of exhaust. You're going to see some destroy, but you're going to see a lot more exhaust than you are destroy. You're going to see some key cost increase mechanisms, quite a few actually. There is a card in Unfathomable that will let you forge for free. Not the only time we've ever seen cards do that, but it definitely seems pretty cool. And it comes as part of a multi-card combo. That's kind of a theme. I didn't note that earlier, but that's definitely a thing that appears multiple times in this set. But yeah, lots of exhausting. You can exhaust artifacts. In past sets, if you wanted to exhaust an artifact, the only way is an opponent's artifact. The only way would be to have some effect that lets you use it. But in this set, there are repeatable effects that let you exhaust an opponent's artifact. That seems pretty cool. There's some temporary purge. There's a card that purges a bunch of stuff, and then when it leaves play, the stuff comes back into play. Similar to Spangler Box, but a little more of an immediate effect. There are cards that have you discard your opponent's cards, even discard from their deck. Like this one is pretty interesting. So that could be pretty disruptive against combo decks, because they are not going to necessarily see all their cards. And then this is pretty interesting. There's a card that has at the end of your turn, you take the creature on your right flank and you put it on the left flank of your opponent's battle line, and vice versa. Oh, it's just at the end of your turn you do it. So that's pretty interesting. Someone was pointing out if you got a Legacy Quixelstone, well, if there's a Quixelstone in play and you have this out too, you would just have one creature that you pass back and forth, and neither of you would ever be able to play a creature again, which seems pretty funny. Yeah, and then there's some hand size reduction, and a lot of, there's a few effects that say your opponent won't be able to ready cards. That seems interesting. I think the biggest concern I have there is some of these things might be difficult to track, and so I almost wish we had a counter that said, put this on, and then the creature, when it would ready, it removes this counter, but for now, I guess we just have to remember. Yeah, there are some hand size reduction tools, and there's some stuff that returns cards to hand and deck. So again, there's some destroy, but more than destroy, there seems to be a lot of, hey, you're going to get this back, or this is going to stay on the board. You just can't use it. All right. And lastly, we have Untamed. And Untamed is still very, well, it's interesting. They've changed a lot from set to set, I feel like. And they've always had a focus on creatures and some creature recursion and then some Amber Burst. The Amber Burst in this set seems fairly subtle. However, there are a lot of effects that care about power counters. So, so I think we are going to see a lot of creatures with power counters just all over them. And there are some effects that care about how many power counters are on creatures. Interesting stuff. But there really is a lot of power counter stuff. And this one's interesting. There's a draw a lot of cards card in Untamed. That seems a little weird. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. There's still a ton of creature recursion. They seem to have a little bit more of a focus on enrage in this set than they have in previous sets. And then of course they still have quite a bit of artifact hate. So yeah, they'll be messing with those artifacts. But yeah, lots of creature recursion, lots of enrage. That card draw is a little weird, and that is an uncommon. So, you know, it should be, well, I guess it'll be uncommon, but it won't be too uncommon. You know, it'll show up here and there, and you'll have to deal with it. So it seems pretty interesting that you could have a draw burst turn in Untamed. Very different from previous sets. So yeah, that is sort of a quick intro to Dark Tidings. Again, I'll actually get to open one tomorrow. I then have a kind of busy weekend, so I hope to do that one, but then I probably won't do a lot more until, you know, next week. And we'll put together a playthrough video, and I think we'll probably put together a how to play video as well. I'll either get my daughter or one of my brothers-in-law to help me make that, and have that for you. So that is what I got for you. Hope you are able to hold out for Dark Tidings to come out. Oh, last thing I should just say, if you really, I can't imagine there's anybody out there that's just getting their Keyforge info from me, but just in case, there is a cooperative Keyforge adventure thing that is coming, and my understanding is right now we're looking at it being a print and play thing, which is a little bit of a bummer, honestly, because there's a lot of people who are less likely to get it in their hands because of that. But I will definitely be printing it. If you you know, haven't done print and play before, I think the easiest way to do it is to just print on a sheet of paper, cut it out, and stuff it into sleeves with, you know, with other cards. So you have a normal card in a sleeve, and you just put the piece of paper in the front. So it is whatever it's supposed to be. But I've been playing around with learning how to do a little more complicated card fabrication, and that's been really fun. So anyway, I'm really excited for that, and looking forward to trying out a co-op version of Keyforge, seeing what kind of decks work well or don't with it, and if it's, you know, different from my competitive kind of stuff. And yeah, that seems pretty cool. So if you are interested in that and you haven't looked into it yet, you can go to the Fantasy Flight website and find that. If you just search for Keyforge Adventures, you should find it. Who else did I recommend? I recommended you check out Amazing Spider Tank and their top 5 returning cards lists. And I also recommended you check out Cole the Week and their in-depth card talks about specific interesting cards that are coming up in Dark Tidings. Short of that, like I said, if you really want to get some early, you could order from Canada, but by the time you're watching this, it's probably coming out pretty soon at your local game store. So go get it from there and enjoy. Get out there and forge those keys.